Welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make your very own pair of these simple chevron beginners friendly earrings. They are brick stitch earrings with fringe and they are 9 rows. So this is perfect as a follow-up to my beginners beading tutorials using the large pony beads where I show you the basics of brick stitch and fringe. So if you haven't checked out those tutorials yet, definitely check those out before watching through this video and trying out this tutorial if you are a beginner. Additionally, the pattern for this is available for download through the link in the description of this video. I will be using Miyuki beads for this as they are very consistent and easy to use for making a very uniform look and feel. You can use check seed beads for this tutorial, but I will advise to just be careful to ensure that they are high quality so they are very consistent in size, because with your brick stitch, if they are not consistent in size, your brick stitch will be very wonky and your fringe will be different sizes as well. You want that nice, beautiful, even look. What I will be using for this tutorial is 6 feet of this size B thread, 1 size 11 beading needle, 2 earring hooks, 2 different colors of these size 11 Miyuki seed beads, a pair of small scissors, a pair of chain nose pliers, some wax, and then optionally you can use some thread guards. They look like this, and this is optional. I'll be showing you how to make a bead loop. Okay, I have my thread measured out to about 6 feet. I'm gonna take my wax and I'm just going to start to condition my thread by pulling my thread through the wax, and at the same time I'm going to be straightening my thread to kind of get some of these curls out of it from being wound up on the little spool. So just pull, pull, pull. And then I like to run my fingers along the thread once more, kind of heating up the wax in my fingers a bit. And this also stretches the thread to straighten it a bit more. So now that we have our thread nice and conditioned, we are going to very carefully thread this needle. Sometimes it helps if you actually needle your thread instead of thread your needle by pinching your thread just like this and pushing it into the hole of your needle just like that. And then now that you have it threaded through, you're going to bring the ends together a little bit more, the 2 ends of your thread, and you want to bring it down until you have one length of thread that's a little bit longer than the other, just like that. So you see this length is a little bit longer than this length. And then you just want to even it out on your needle so that your thread comes together. And then I like to just pinch my thread together, warming up that wax again and just pressing them together so that they almost become one thread, just like that. Now I'm going to take my 2 colors and I'm going to decide which one is going to be first, which will be for our brick stitch. I'm going to pick this lovely, lovely neon green color. And what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to pick up 6 beads according to our pattern. Just like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to these beads with my finger and pinch them and pull the needle through and the thread all the way until I reach my tail where there's just 1 thread. And I'm going to leave a tail of about 4 inches or so. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass through 3 of those beads. The tail's here, and I'm going to pass up through the first 3 beads and pull your thread until you have a little stack here of 3 beads in each stack. You don't want to pull too tight here because you don't want your beads to bulge out. So just enough to get them to stack together, and then we're going to pass down through that second row of beads, just like that, and pull. Making sure that they're not too tight. And then what I like to do to make it even more secure is I like to pass up through this row of beads and back down through the second row of beads again, just to make it a little extra secure and stable. So we're going to go up through the first row of beads, just like that, and then back down through the second row of beads, just like this. And there is the beginning of your ladder stitch, or what I like to call the foundation stitch for your brick stitch. So I'm going to pick up 3 more beads. And then for this row, I'm going to follow that length of thread going down, and I'm going to go down through my second row of beads, just like that. I have the beads sitting here on my needle, and we're going to pull. And then they will stack next to each other, just like that. And then to secure, I'm going to go up through that new row of beads that I've just added. Just like that. And then repeat. Okay, so now we have 9 rows of beads in our foundation stitch, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the beginning. I'm going to continue to stabilize these last 2 beads. I just find that it helps to decrease slipping. So I'm going to go back down through the next row of beads and back up. Again, the same thing as for this side. Don't pull too tight because the beads will start to bulge. You can see that they naturally have a bit of a bulge, but if you pull too tight, they'll bulge even more. So we want to keep them nice and straight, just like that. So now we're going to begin our brick stitch. So we're going to pick up 2 beads, and we're going to skip this first row, go through the second loop, just like that, and we're going to thread through. Then we're going to go up through the bead on the left, just like that, and then down through the bead on the right, just like that, and then back up through the bead on the left. Just like that, giving a little tug to keep them aligned. And then we're going to pick up 1 bead at a time for the rest of the row. So just 1 bead. We're going to go through that next loop from back to front, pull through, and back up through that single bead. And we're going to repeat until the end of the row. Okay, so we have our first row of brick stitch complete, and we're going to move on to our second row, picking up 2 beads, skipping the first loop, going through the second loop from back to front, up through the bead on the right, down through the bead on the left, and back up through the bead on the right. As with the first row, we're going to continue the rest of the row of the brick stitch with a single bead, passing through the next loop and up through our new bead. Oops. Just like this, giving it a little tug to snug, and then just continue this till the end of the row. Okay, so we're going to repeat the same thing. Each row is decreasing by 1. Come back when you have just 2 beads left at the very top of your pyramid. Okay, so once you have your pyramid here, we're going to do a little bead loop. The alternative to a bead loop would be to put a thread guard here, but I'm going to show you how to create a bead loop. So what you're going to do is pick up 6 beads, then you're going to take your needle and go down through this single bead here on the right, on the very top right of your pyramid, and you're going to pull through, and you're going to find those beads stacked together. You can kind of correct them a little bit like that. And what you're going to do now is go up through the bead that is on the left and through the 3 beads that follow that. So up through them just like this. And then you're going to go down through this set of beads. There'll be 4 in total. And pass down through that first bead that we went through in the beginning. And that is your bead loop. If you want to see this more clearly, I do have this as part of my beginner's tutorial using pony beads, very large jumbo beads, so you can see that more clearly if you are a beginner. So from here, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go from the back to the front, just right through these 2 beads here, just like this. And I'm going to hold on to the end here so that it creates a loop, just like this. And then I'm going to wrap my needle around it twice to create a double knot. And then I'm going to pull my thread through. And before I start tightening here, I want to make sure that my thread is nice and straight, because sometimes it likes to get bunched up. So I just place my needle in there and I follow it as I'm pulling here, just like that, so that the knot is placed exactly where I want it to be. And then I tug on it tight, and as I have so much length left in my thread, I can use that for all of my fringe. So I'm going to pass down through here, all the way through. I'm just going to follow this line of beads here on the side. So from here, just down like this, and just like that. Then I'm going to continue the last couple beads in this row. Just like that, and I'm ready to begin my fringe. Okay, so now we are going to begin our fringe. I have both my colors here, and we're going to start with 5 of color A, which is my nice lovely green color. So go ahead and get 5 beads on your needle. Just like that. And then 13 of color B, which is this lovely neon pink that I've selected. and then 10 of color A. Just like that. And then we're going to move our beads all the way to the top of our work, just like this. Skip the last bead and thread your needle up through all of these beads, as far up as you can go before you have to start again. And making sure that you pull that tail out and adjust the thread on your needle so that your tail length is adjusted as well. Just gonna pull on there. All right, finishing this one up. You go up through the rest of your beads and up through your entire foundation row of beads here, so all 3 beads. And you're going to pull. Just like that, adjusting your tension so that you make sure that your fringe swings nicely, but you don't have a large gap here of thread showing. And we're going to go down through the next row here, just like that. Sometimes you have to readjust your tension of your fringe when you enter a new row because it tightens a bit. All right, so for this next row, we're going to do 7 of color A, of color B, and 11 of color A. Just like that. Same thing, move your beads up to the top of your work. Make sure that tail is out of the way. Skip that last bead and go up through all of your beads in your fringe. And up through your foundation row and pull. Adjusting your tension. And now we're going to go down through the next row of our foundation stitch, just like that, and we're ready for fringe number 3. We're going to do 9 of color A, (15) of color B, and 11 of color A. Okay. And go ahead and attach your fringe. making sure to get that tail out, just like that. Next row, making sure to check the tension every time you make a new row. So the next row is going to be 11 of color A. (16) of color B. And 11 of color A once more. Oops. Okay, and attach your fringe. Moving on to the next row. Adjusting the tension. Look at how they've kind of started to crinkle a bit. So I'm just going to adjust the tension. This one is stiff, so I'm just going to pull on it a little bit. And there we go. That's a little bit better. So for row 5, we have 13 of color A. (17) of color B. And 11 of color A. And attach your fringe. Okay, we are now in the center of our brick stitch right here. This is the center line. So from here, we're going to basically do the same thing, but the opposite direction. So skipping this one, we're going to do the same patterning, which is 11 color A, 16 color B, 11 color A. And then for this one, it's the same thing. So it's just in the reverse order. Okay, and so before we move on, what I like to do is I like to triple check my fringe, because the next step is tying off, and after that it's really hard to adjust the tension of your fringe. So what I like to do is I like to go through and I like to see which ones are a bit stiff, a bit like wrinkly, and then I like to just move some slack from here over by pulling on each thread from the left to the right, just like that, moving that slack over a bit. I can do that all the way to the end if I need to. And I keep doing that until I'm satisfied with how the fringe looks. Making sure that it moves very freely like this, and that there are no gaps. Do you see this gap right here? This is what we want to avoid as well. So there's a very large gap where you can see my thread. So with that, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm just going to pull the one that's next to it, and I'm just going to adjust that tension. And there you go. There's no gaps. It hangs really nicely. I'm ready to tie off. I'm going to go up one more bead, just like this. I'm going to go from back to front through. I want my needle coming through here, just like this. I'm going to grab, there's like thread there, and you want to have your needle going underneath the thread so that you can create a loop, and pull your thread but keeping a loop here with your finger, just like this. And we're going to do another double knot, and we're just going to put our needle through this twice, wrapping around, and I'm going to pull my thread through. So before I pull on my thread, I want to get my needle underneath the double tie here, so that way when I pull, you can evenly pull down the knot instead of one of the knots being faster than the other, and then you have a big loop stuck there. So just like that, giving it a nice good tug so that the knot can kind of hide in there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down through this next bead here and pull, and then down through this foundation stitch and through some of my fringe. So something like just like that, and I'm going to pull. So now what I have is I have a secured thread, and the tail of it is going through my fringe, sticking out just like this. I'm going to clip that, and then I have my tail, and those are the two threads coming out of my work right now. So I'm going to snip right here as close to that fringe as I can get without snipping the other thread that's holding it together. Then I'm going to remove the excess thread from my needle, and I'm going to take this tail and I'm going to thread it through my needle. Just like that. And I'm going to take that tail and I'm going to add it to the fringe here just by going down through my beads. Just like that. And then snipping off the excess And we have our beautiful earring. So the last step is to add our earring hook. So I have it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our chain nose pliers and we are just going to open up this little hook here, and we're going to take our fringe. So this is the wrong side of our work. This is where you're going to be able to see our threads from adding our fringe and our knot and all these excess little threads and stuff. So we're going to turn our work around where it's just a little bit cleaner. We're going to take this hook and we're going to have it facing down. So the hook is going to go through from the front to the back here. So the hook is facing down and our right side of our work is facing up. Then we're going to close this little hook here with our pliers, being very careful not to grab onto one of our beads because we don't want to snap that. And we're just going to bend it back into place just like this, securing it so that it does not have any gaps for our thread to fall through. And there is our completed earring. So to complete your set, you're just going to do the very same thing again in the same order, and you'll have your nice, beautiful set of earrings. Thank you so much for watching through this tutorial. For more beading tutorials, definitely don't forget to subscribe because there will be many tutorials to come. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and comment below. See you in the next one.